Hey guys, it's Kaylor. Welcome to the YouTube channel. This is part 2 of our design to code for our responsive illustration style website. This is a website for a design service that supplies their users with monthly assets. So we designed this in the last video, and in this video we're going to code the HTML and CSS. So make sure you download the project file. The link will be down in the description. Also, I want to note that there will be a part 2.5 of this where we will apply the responsive code. So today we're going to be making the desktop version. I hope you guys are excited. Let's go ahead and head over to brackets and get started. Inside of the project file, you're going to have an images folder with everything you need, and then the index, and then the main.css. So I have both of those open here in different tabs. So we're going to start in the index, and we're just going to set the doc type first. So doc type space HTML, and then open and close our HTML tags. First thing we'll need is our head tag, and inside of here, our title is just going to be design monthly, and then I'm going to do this line, and then I'm going to say home. We'll need 2 meta tags. So the first one is going to be setting the character set. I'm going to set that to UTF-8, and then the next meta will be for the viewport. So name viewport, and then content is going to be width equals device dash width comma initial dash scale equals 1.0. And then we'll need to link to the style sheet. So we'll say link rel style sheet and then href main.css. Outside of our head tag, we can go ahead and open up the body tag. And if we take a look at our design, the first thing we're going to be coding is this section right here. We're going to have the navigation, and then all of this is going to be inside of a header tag. So we'll open up that header, and then we need our nav. And our nav is just going to need 2 A tags, href, # them out, and then I'll duplicate that. And the first one is going to say design monthly, so this is for our logo, and then we're going to have a span tag, and this is going to say free. The next A tag is going to be for our icon, so we'll do an image tag. And then we'll say source images nav underscore icon. And then for the alt tag, I'll just say nav icon. Outside of the nav, but still inside the header, I'm going to start with an h1 tag. And I'll paste in my text for that. And then below that, we're going to need our first button. So we'll do an A tag with an href and then # that out. We're going to add a class here that's going to be called button outline. So we're going to have 2 cases of button. One's going to be an outline, and the other one is going to be filled. So inside of this, we're just going to say sign up, and that's all we need for the header. We can go ahead and load this up, and we don't have a lot going on, but this is what we have so far. If we take a look at the design, the next section is the teams section. So we're just going to need a paragraph. This is going to be an H1, and then we're going to have 3 of these icons with some text below it. So outside of our header, we're going to create a new div tag with a class of team. Inside of here, we're going to have an H1, which is going to be that kind of paragraph text. It's going to be the same size as our H1, so we'll just leave that the same. And I'll copy in, paste that text. So what we're going to do is create a div with a class of members. And this is going to contain every one of our icons. So every one of our icons is going to be in a div with a class called person. That way we only have to style this once. So we're going to actually have 3 of these. So we're going to copy and paste that in just a moment. So inside of person, we're going to have an image for our icon, and that's going to say source images. The first one we need is David Coyle, and I'll just do an alt tag of profile icon. Below that, we need an H3 for their name, and I'll type out David Coyle. And then in a P tag below that, we're going to have their experience. David has 4 years of visual design. So that's our first person. So I'm just going to copy that and then paste that below. And then we'll just change the image. The second image we're going to be using is Mary Hutton. This is going to be the center image. So we'll change the name, Mary Hutton. And then we'll change the experience to 7 years of UI/UX. We can copy that one more time, paste it below, and then we're going to change this one to James Hillman. Change the H3 text to James Hillman, and then the experience is 5 years of user interaction. And we can switch over to our preview, and this is what we have so far, so everything looks good. So that's all we need for the team section. So now we're going to be working on the about section. I've just made quite a bit of space here so you guys don't have to look at the bottom of your screen the whole time. So let's take a look at the design. And the about section is going to have an image in the background, and it's mainly just this right here. So this will be an H1 and then 2 images for these icons. So below our team div, we'll start a new div with a class of about. Inside of here, the first thing we need is an H1 tag. So I'll paste in that text. And then below that, I'm just going to create a div for the icons called class of icons, just to keep it simple. And inside of here, we're going to have 2 image tags. The first one is going to have a source of images, Xd underscore icon, with an alt of Adobe Xd icon. The second one will have a source of images, sketch underscore icon, and then in the alt tag, I'll say sketch app icon. And that's it for that section. So next up, we have the sign up and then the footer. So let's go ahead and do both of those and finish up the HTML. So below the about, I'll create a new div with a class of call to action. Inside of here, we're just going to have an H1, and this is going to be on the left, and it's going to say sign up now. And then to the right of that, we'll have a tag, which is going to be for our next button, which is the filled button. So we'll add the href and pound symbol of that, and then we're going to add a class of btn filled. It's going to say get started. That's all we need for the call to action. So then we can add the footer tag in, and the footer is just going to have a p tag for the copyright info. Paste that in, and then I'll just create a div with a class of pages for our website pages. Actually, let's name this footer pages. And the reason we're doing that is later on when we make this responsive, we're going to be hiding every one of those pages. So that's why we're putting it in a div. So we can just say hidden. So in here, we're going to have a bunch of A tags. So let's go ahead and add that with href, pound symbol that out. And then we're going to duplicate this about 5 times. And then lastly, privacy. I'm just going to remove that spacing I added. And that is all for our HTML. So let's take a look at that. So these 2 are buttons, that's good. Here's our team section. There's the about, the sign up with the button, and then the footer. Now we're on to making this look like an actual website and to match our design. So for the CSS, I'm going to start with a global section. So I'm just going to create that section. So we'll just do a comment, and let's do a bunch of dashes, and then we'll say global, and then some more dashes. And below that, I'm going to do an asterisk, and that's going to target everything. And I'm going to say margin of 0, padding of 0, border 0, outline 0, font size is going to be 100%, and then vertically align to the baseline. So that's our browser reset. The next thing I'm going to do is the HTML, and here I'm going to set the font family. And I always like to mention this while I do this. This is going to work for me since I'm on localhost, but if you're wanting to use the same font I'm using, you're going to need to embed that or use something like Typekit. So I'm just going to type out circular std and then a sans serif alternative if that's not available. That's all we need for the HTML. So next is the body. Here I'm going to set the width just to 100% just so we have that. And then we're done with that. So next in global, I'm going to do the font. So the first one is the H1. And this is going to be a font size of 48 pixels. Set the font weight to 100. And then we'll color that to blue. And the color code is 2B9DFF. The H3 is next, and that is going to be a font size of 24 pixels. Then the P tag, we'll set that to a font size of 16 pixels. Now we can style our two buttons. We have one up here for sign up, and then the other one down here for get started. So the first one is the sign up one, and that is .btn outline. And we'll display this as a block. And I'll set a text decoration to none to remove that underline. We can do the color, and the color of the text is going to be 2B9DFF. That's that same blue color we're using. And we're going to do a border, 2 pixels, solid, and then it's going to be that blue color code. So I'm going to copy that and paste that in. And so you'll see that start to take place over here. We'll set a border radius of 6 pixels. I'm going to set the width on this to 175 pixels wide, and the height is going to be 53 pixels tall. I'm going to make some space in my CSS so you guys don't have to look at the bottom of the screen again. So after the height, we'll go with the line height, and I'll set that to 53 pixels to match the height of our entire button. After that, I'm going to say text align to the center, and then margin to the top only of 30 pixels. That'll give us some spacing there. So that's our first button done. If you guys want, you can add a hover state to that. I'm just going to leave that for now. And then we'll do a button filled, and that's going to be our button down here for get started. And I'm just going to copy all of this, paste that in. I'm going to remove border. For the text color, I'm going to set that to white. Then I'm going to set the background color to our blue that we're using, so 2B9DFF. And that should be everything. So there we go. There's our get started button. So now we have our two buttons, and we can use them as much as we want in our code. And so that is it for our global. So I'm just going to copy this and then paste this down here, and we'll work on the nav next. For our nav, I'm going to set the line height first. So line height, and that's going to be 150 pixels. Let's just get some nice spacing. And then we're going to align the text to the right. Next, I'm going to select the nav A, and this is going to be for our logo. Text decoration is going to be set to none. The color on that is going to be a black color, so 202.427. Font size, I'm going to set that to 20 pixels. Font weight, we'll set that to 700. Then I'm going to target that first child, so nav A first child. And I'm going to float this to the left, so now we can see our logo. And then on the image over here on the right, nav A image, we're going to vertically align that to the middle, so everything is centered. And now we need to adjust the span. So we'll say nav A span. Background color is going to be 2B9DFF. Set a padding of 5 pixels by 15 pixels. A border radius of 1000 pixels. Font weight, I'm going to set that to 100. Color for our text is going to be white. And then margin on the left is going to be 7 pixels, so we can get that away from our logo just slightly. So there's our navigation. So next we're going to need our header. So I'm just going to copy this comment and paste it down here. And we'll say header. For the header, we're only going to need two things. First is the header itself, so header. And here I'm going to say height, and I'm going to set this to 1000 pixels. And then the min height is going to be 1000 pixels to match. Padding is 0.5%. That's going to give us our spacing on each side. Background image. It's going to be a URL, images, and then background underscore header. We're going to want that not to repeat, so background dash repeat, set to no repeat. Background size, it's going to be contain. And then the background position is going to be bottom and to the right. So that's what we have. Our header H1 is the last thing we need. We need to set the width on that to 40%. And then we need to add some margin. So 2 em on the top and then 0 for the rest of the values. And that is our header section done. Next, we're going to move on to the team. So we'll copy and paste our comment. Put out team. For our team, we're going to target that class, so .team. We're going to set a text alignment to the center. Margin is going to be 10 em on the top, 0 on the right, 3 em on the bottom, and 0 on the left. Then we're going to need the spacing on the sides, so we're going to do that through padding, 0 and then 5%. And then we can set our background image, so URL, images, and this is going to be background underscore team. Background dash repeat is no repeat. And then we just need the position. Background position is going to be center. Next is .team H1. We're going to set the width on that to 50% of our browser. And then we're going to set a margin of 0 on the top, auto on the left, and 30 pixels on the bottom. And then auto on the right. After that, we can target our members class. So .members. Here we're going to say display of flex. And then we're going to justify that content to the center. Some small adjustments. We need to select the .person class. And we're going to put a margin of 0 on the top and bottom, and then 30 pixels on the left and the right. And then we'll set a color to 202 427. And then lastly, for some spacing, we'll do person H3. And we'll put a margin on the bottom of that to 5 pixels. So this is what we're left with. That looks really good. So I'm going to copy and paste this team tag down here. And we'll change that to about. For our about section, we're going to have that image on the left. So we'll say .about. And then padding for that spacing, 0.5%. And then background image. And we're going to say URL images. And this is going to be background underscore about. Background dash repeat is no repeat. And then we'll set the position to the left and then centered. Background size is going to be set to 80%. The height is going to be 900 pixels. And then the min height of this section is going to be 900 pixels as well. So that's all we need for the about tag. Next is the about H1. Here we're going to set a margin on the bottom of 30 pixels and then a padding at the top of 300 pixels to get that centered with our image. Then we're going to need to target our .icons class, so .icons, and then I'm going to select the images, and this is going to be a margin to the right of 30 pixels. That's going to space those two out from each other. And then lastly, we need to put this text and icons over here on the right. So we're going to say .about H1, comma, .icons class. And we'll set the margin on the left to 50%. So that is that section now done. You'll see that this is on the right, and our image looks good here on the left. So we're just about done. Next, we need the call to action and then the footer. So I'm going to copy the about tag and then paste it down here. We'll say call to action, and then I'll paste it one more time for the footer. So here in the call to action, we're going to say dot call to action, and then we'll set the text alignment to the center. Padding on this section is going to be 20 EM on the top, and then we'll do 5% so that we have that space on the side, and then 20 EM on the bottom, and then that 5% again. Then we're going to need a background image for this section. So I'm going to set the URL to that, to images, background underscore call to action. And we don't want that to repeat, so we'll set that, background repeat, no repeat. Background size, I'm going to set this to 40% for now. And then the background position will be centered. The last thing we need for the call to action is we just make sure everything's in line. So dot call to action, H1, then comma, dot call to action A. It's grabbing both the title and the button. And we'll just say display inline block. And margin on that is going to be 0 and then 60 pixels. And then we'll vertically align that to the middle. So that is what we have so far. Everything looks really good. So for the footer, we're going to say footer. We're going to add that spacing on the side. So padding 0.5%. And then margin on the bottom to get that off of the bottom of the browser. We're going to set that to 40 pixels. And then we'll also color that text. So we'll go with 2B9DFF again. Then we're going to say footer P and then comma dot footer pages. And we'll set those to display of inline block. So that'll line everything up nice and centered. For dot footer pages by itself, I'm going to float that to the right. And then the last thing we need to do is say dot footer pages, and then we'll target the A tags themselves. Set the text decoration to none. The font weight is going to be 100. I'm going to set that to that blue color again. And then we'll need some spacing in between each of those. So we'll do that by setting the margin on the left to 30 pixels. I'm going to copy this tag one more time and paste it down here. And I'm going to change this to responsive. We will be adding the responsive in the next video. I'm going to call that part 2.5 because it's just going to be adjusting what we did here in part 2. But that is it for our index and main.css files for this website. So let me unselect what we have selected here. So this is what we're left with. We have our header, and then we have our team section, our about section, sign up, and then our footer. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe for more UI related content. Make sure you have those notifications on so you don't miss making this responsive. And as always, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.